listen to what Chris has to say, and perhaps this afternoon George's story as well, and take that to heart. As I said earlier, as a Catholic school system, yes, math and science and English are very important, and we're here to teach academics, but we also strive to develop a sense of civic responsibility and a responsibility to the larger community, be it your hometown, be it Canada, be it the world, but take on social justice issues and causes and make them your own and run with them. And that's something that we value dearly, so we appreciate you being here, and hopefully you'll take that message to heart. And believe you me, that one individual can make a difference if they put their mind to it. We've all sorts of examples of that. And I also want to thank George for for getting the whole thing organized. You'll hear George has a very personal connection to this as well, from his own personal circumstances, and certainly providing support. I believe your nonprofit organization is called Step by Step, and it's to promote organ donor awareness. George was a recipient of an organ donation a number of years ago, and obviously it's very close to him, and a good example of what an organ donation can do. I believe, George, you were near death, and without the organ donation, George would be with us today. So it's obviously very close to George's heart as well, and he's running with it, providing the background and the support and so on. So once again, as a school board, we're certainly pleased to be part of this this whole day. I know when you go back to the school, you're going to get a very warm welcome at the school, and once again, I know the students will listen to what you have to say, and they're going to take your message to heart, and they'll do what they can and hopefully sign their donor cards. Looking around, most of you have your licenses or getting to that age, or you're going to get your license sometime in the near future. Sign the donor card and spread the words to your friends that it can make a difference. Thank you very much. And I remember one housekeeping item. Before, when you convene outside over by the flame, the Eternal Peace Flame, Terry's our communications officer from the board, and Terry would like to take a picture of the whole group before you start to leave. So if you can get yourselves gathered around the flame before we start to head out, and he'll get a group picture of everyone there. Okay, thanks. Okay.
Thank you, Julian. And our next guest speaker is Mrs. Joan Macklin.
Thank you, George. Thank you for inviting my husband, Paul, who is a Member of Parliament for Northumberland Riding, which is between Kingston and Toronto on the north shore of Lake Ontario. 2 weeks ago, I was representing him in Brighton, and 2 weeks ago, I met Chris. And at that time, we got chatting. I walked a little bit with him, and we got chatting about where he was going, and he was going to be in Ottawa. And you know, some of the plans were organized, but not everything was set in gold yet, and wanted to know, you know, what could he do there? And I said, well, I'm sure we can help you somehow. So I spoke to my husband and said, do you think our office can do something? And yes, we'll speak to Ryan, and as it all turns out, we're here. And George invited Paul to speak to a group, speak to you, speak to Chris here, but just as 2 weeks ago I represented him in Cobourg while he was in Ottawa, today he's in Cobourg and I'm here, so it goes. When I spoke with Chris 2 weeks ago, I was very impressed with him, and mostly impressed with his attitude. And that's a positive attitude, and that positive attitude has made him want to take this journey across Canada and raise awareness for organ donation. And it's that positive attitude that has given him that, that desire. It's also the help of George who has given him that desire, because he saw George speak in a similar circumstance, I think, Chris, 3 years ago. And that made him want to take on this task as well. Certainly, he has a much heavier load than the rest of us. And he certainly has good reason to complain, to sit around and feel sorry for himself, to make life miserable for himself and those around him, but he isn't. In his need, he is trying to help others. And for that, I offer congratulations. When I'm thinking about Chris's attitude, I think of the words of Charles Swindoll, and some of you may already have heard that, but I think in it is a lesson for all of us, and so I would like to read that to you. Attitude. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on my life. Attitude, to me, is more important than facts. It's more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, or a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in certain ways. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. And I think that Chris can teach us that. Certainly, whatever I say isn't going to have the impact that what Chris is going to say to you, but I certainly can encourage you to talk to your friends, talk to your family about being an organ donor. In so doing, you need to come to grips with your death, and that's not an easy thing to do. But Chris has had to do that. If Chris can do that, so can we. So I encourage you to do that. 2 weeks ago, Chris, I told you I believed in miracles, and I still believe in miracles. So I believe that you will get a liver transplant, and I believe that you will continue to have a positive influence on our society as you go across Canada, and after your operation, I'm sure that you will continue to do that, just as George has. You have a good role model there. And I think that you're a good role model for all of us. Don't take your organs to heaven, I need them right here, will always ring in my ear when I think of Chris. And I don't think that we can ignore that plea. So, Chris, my prayers are with you and George and your family as you carry on in your journey, and my prayers are with you as you try to grant Chris his wish. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. I also want to point out that it was Mr. Macklin's office, Joan, and assistant to Mr. Macklin, Andrew, that helped coordinate all the activities here at Parliament Hill. And it's not an easy thing to do. I just found out that in the last week. So we thank you for that. It took a lot of hard work. I want to quote another individual. He was pretty famous, and he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." And that was a quote by John F. Kennedy, who was then President of the United States. And it's in that quote that I think of Chris. Because Chris, as he's waking up every morning and getting ready to do all these activities and press conferences and along with his schoolwork, and he's not thinking of himself. He is thinking of others. He's determined. He's determined. And he won't stop halfway. He's determined to help save every single person on that waiting list. That's his dream. And he does have an effect on people. He does have an effect on people. And in our lifetime, sometimes we get a chance to meet individuals such as Chris. Today here, on day 51, Christopher's 353-day campaign, here's your chance to meet Christopher Knowles.